y'all, it's Katie at Romence Gardens. Today we are talking about Paperwhite bulbs. Now if you're not familiar with what a Paperwhite bulb is, a Paperwhite bulb is in the Narcissus family, so much like when you plant your daffodils in the fall to come up in the spring. But this particular bulb is basically for forcing. And forcing means you're going to basically just put it in some water and allow it to just put its blooms out. Sometimes when they talk about forcing, they'll talk about how you have to cool a bulb. So you can force tulips and daffodils and hyacinths and things, but they need to root first and then cool for anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, and then they send their blooms up. With amaryllis and with paperwhites, they are ready to go for you. We have multiple varieties of paperwhites, and you'll see on the screen the different colors that we have, the different varieties, and basically what this beautiful flower looks like. So you're gonna have to use your imagination a little bit today as we talk about all the different uses you can take with these paperwhite bulbs. So again, this is what a paperwhite bulb looks like. Here's where the roots are, and here's where the plant and the stalk and the flower will come out. Each of these bulbs usually has 2 to 3 clusters of flowers per bulb. So when you're doing these, a single bulb will get you quite a few flowers, but we usually recommend doing a minimum of 3 bulbs in different containers. Now, paperwhites have been around for a really long time. You'll remember your grandmothers doing them in like low bowls and things like that. And if you do remember that, you might also remember them kind of tipping over. So here at Romence, we like to do a lot of our bulbs in things that have a little more of a neck. And then what that does is it allows the bulbs to grow out, and then they'll flower about right here, and it almost holds it up like a bouquet. So this is one of our go-tos, is a kind of a wider base and then a teenier neck. And what we'll do is we'll put stones to about the point which is the widest part of the vase. Once I get the stones in there, I like a vase that I can kind of get my hand into, and you're just gonna nicely nestle the paperwhite bulbs right down into the stones. Now the idea with this is, again, first they're gonna start rooting, so they're gonna pull roots down into here, and then at that same time they'll start putting their blooms up, which are gonna come up here and then will bloom for you. Once you've got the bulbs where you want them, and you wanna just make sure that all the points are facing toward the center here, then I'm gonna take a little bit of gravel, and I just simply want to stabilize them. I'm not necessarily burying them. All of these stones are somewhat for aesthetics, but then they're also to keep the bulbs stabilized. What's amazing is the roots here, if they didn't have the stones on top, they will push the bulb all the way up, and then it gets kind of wonky in there. So again, we like to stabilize the bulbs with a little bit of gravel. And then what we're gonna come do, and this is kind of why I like clear vases, I wanna be able to see in the beginning especially that the water is going only up to the base of the bulb. Now, later on, this isn't as important, but when you're first pulling the bulbs out of dormancy, you do not want to submerge the whole bulb in water. That's when it tends to rot and will sometimes not do well. So our goal is just to sort of tickle the bottom of the bulb to get those roots to activate and grow down. So again, if you're kind of new to this, starting with a clear vase lets you allow to see that where that water is and make sure you're not going so deep. Now what I do after that is I allow the water level to sort of drop down, and once it's down a ways, because there'll be some moisture in there, then I will slowly just refill it. If you find that the water is getting really dirty, you can try and kind of drain the water and change it. But usually, as long as I don't add water constantly and I kind of let the level go down, I find that it actually, it pulls the roots nice and deep. So again, once the water's down to about here, then I will add a little more water to the base of the bulb. When they start growing and the roots are activated, you'll notice that it starts pulling up the water a lot faster. So you may be adding water a little more quickly than you do in the first week or so. The average paperwhite will take anywhere from 3 weeks at its fastest time to 6 weeks at its slowest time to go from start to bloom. Now, October is usually when it takes closer to 6 weeks, but by the time we start them in, let's say, December, it's closer to 3 weeks. So a lot of times for Christmas blooming, I like to start them the first week of December, make sure I get them all set. I put them in a place with basic light and basic warmth, and then I let them start just going. If they start going too quickly, for instance, if you want them to be open for Christmas Eve or something like that, you can take this whole vase and put it in a cool garage or put it in a refrigerator, but you put it somewhere to cool it, and that will just hold the bulbs until you pull them out again, and then they'll quite quickly open for you. So again, it's easier to slow them down than to speed them up. So think in the terms of planting when it's going to be about 3 to 4 weeks, and that gives you a good idea. Now there's tons of stuff you can do with this. They are going to come up this way. So again, most of them will end up being about yay tall. So you can do fun things like sometimes I'll put some berry branches in here, and as it grows up, I can get it to wind around the berry branch. And what's really fun about that is then you get this red mixed in with the beautiful white flowers, and it kind of helps hold them up. So this is a really fun thing to do. You can do simple things like tying just a little bit of Christmas ribbon around it and getting yourself a pretty little bow. Again, just anything to go with your color scheme and decorating and things like that. You can see here that we found these neat gems that actually look like ice cubes. I've also been known to put cranberries on the top and float the cranberries in there because cranberries actually grow in bogs, so they do quite well with more of a water situation. So you can really do anything you want. We've got lots of different stone varieties you can find. Any of your craft stores will have all different things. You can do marbles, you can do matchbox cars. I mean, anything you want that makes it fun for everybody in your family. And as you can see, you can make it fancy. You can go ahead and do something like this, and you can imagine when all these bulbs are blooming, this will be a glorious centerpiece and easily reusable. So again, things like this are fun to do for big centerpieces and things like that. Now, if you don't have a vase at hand, but you've got a pretty pot that has drainage, paperwhites also do well in soil. When you plant a paperwhite in soil, you actually do the same thing. You want to make sure that the nose of the bulb is above the soil and that you have soil for them to root into. But when you do them in soil, you water them a little bit more like a plant. So you have to make sure you have a drainage hole and a saucer so that the plant doesn't rot. Again, because what we want to do is in the soil will actually kind of keep moisture around the base of the bulb for you, just like a regular plant. So again, if you happen to do it in a pot that has drainage, you can use potting soil. If you have some cute Christmas pots like our little buffalo plaid deer here that doesn't have a drainage hole, this is another great one that you can do with a little bit of gravel in the bottom and kind of get your bulbs right at a nice level. But you just have to remember, try and gauge where the water is going to be. You don't want to have too much water. One trick I do is after I get it in there and I add some water, I give it a slight tip. I shouldn't be seeing the water with a slight tip. So if I do, then I might take a little bit out. So again, just make sure you don't bury the bulb in too much water. Other than that, paperwhites are amazing, they're easy, and they come in 4 varieties right now for us. We have Ziva, which is my favorite. It's the classic paperwhite. It has the classic scent, classic growth habit. We also have Inbul. Inbul is one that is actually lightly scented and doesn't have a strong fragrance because a lot of people do not like the fragrance. So be aware, if you're sensitive to certain scents, you may want to go for an Inbul. We also have one that's called Soleil de Oro, and that is different. It's a bright yellow and then it has a little orange cup. Now the only thing with those is I find those are a little more rogue. They kind of grow a little sporadically, but the color is beautiful. And then our final variety is Winter Sun, which is somewhat newer to the market, and that is actually beautiful white petals with a soft yellow center. So you can see as all these pictures show up on the screen for you, these bulbs are beautiful, they're easy. I have one unfortunate thing though, is when they bloom, they're done. So unfortunately you just throw those away and you grab more. But again, paperwhites, an awesome thing to do in the winter so you have flowers all the time. I tend to start few different planters, maybe 2 to 3 weeks kind of spaced out so that I constantly have some coming. And my other thing about paperwhites is as much as I love the blooms, to be honest, seeing them all bright green and in bud is just as invigorating as having them in bloom. So I'm so glad you tuned in about paperwhites today. If you're interested in other bulbs that are easy to force and are great to use in the house, check out our amaryllis video. I think it's kind of cool. I hope you learned a little something today. I hope you try paperwhites. And if you stop in the store, let us show you all the different ways we like to put our paperwhite vases together. And I hope you have a great day.